I just wanted to say, like, regarding the cosmological argument,
is it related to this? Or is it
yes, related to this. No, I personally think the domino analogy actually answers that, in that, you know, a fourth pushing the first event is outside of reality, etc. And I understand that you say, you know, you don't know. It's an honest answer, which I respect you for. But the question, that question in my mind has been answered. Well, what I haven't heard from the atheist side directly is whether you directly refute the rationality of their argument, and on what grounds, in that this reality cannot come into existence by itself. And from a scientific perspective, I respect, I don't know, but when we actually have points on the table which form a rational argument, I don't respect, I don't know, in that you have to actually shoot down the argument or you accept it as a rational intellectual. And I wanted to see
I think it was mentioned here that, you know, we need proof that there is, we need to be able to see something. But I mean, if you think maybe 1,000 years ago when there were no medical imaging techniques around, I mean, no one could see your insides in terms of, you know, seeing your brain. Did that mean your brain didn't exist? I mean, to a person existing 1,000 years ago, that idea might seem quite absurd that there's something actually in there. But it does exist, and we found out that it does exist. So, you know, does actually seeing something or being able to determine it directly mean that, well, if you can't do so, that it doesn't exist?
So, I think it was. Sorry, was he? Sorry.
I'm not sure.
You explained one after.
I forgot your name. I'm sorry. You. Hasan. So I feel that your basis for rational argument is essentially memory and experience and common sense conceptions. But I feel that the memories are inherently emotional and full of psychological complications, and almost by definition irrational. So you're essentially believing that something is going to happen based on your previous beliefs, which is already a belief. So the argument is kind of circular.
I'm going to go with Derek on this one, because maybe I'm also dim, because I'm not understanding the argument of we don't know, because using the domino example, one domino falls, then there can't be an infinite amount, because the infinite amount of dominoes are falling while this one's still here. But because we're here now, we know infinite doesn't exist. Therefore, if dominoes are dependent on the one before it and they're limited, then by default, if you was to put another thing, say before the first cause, you put something that's limited and dependent, that's just another domino. So by default, you do know that the first thing that caused it can't have the characteristics or attributes of the things within the chain. Therefore, you do know it's independent.
If you accept that creator is required, it seems rather vague on what exactly this creator is. It is not necessarily a god, but rather could be underlying sort of, not physical principles, but perhaps mathematical sort of principles that we cannot understand, but do not necessarily fit into the idea or concept of God, but something completely different that we would not be able to compare. What do you have to say about that?
Any more questions on this sort of issue?
I'll just quickly address that I don't know. I'll repeat what Mohammed Omar said, that what don't we know? A simple example is that you have knocked on the door. Now, you don't know who it is, fair enough. But you know that something separate to the door, you know, hit the door and create that sound that you heard by rational extension of the rational thought. Now, we've disproven that the universe has not been here for an unlimited number of years of time. So by rational extension, we can say that there was a cause which was opposite to this reality, this material world. So you don't know what caused it, what its name, or what it does in the weekend, whatever, you know. But you know that it's unlimited and it's independent from this material world.
Gentleman who pointed out the potential issue with memory. Can you remember what you just said?
Yeah.
Good. So you use memory. Excellent. So we all use it. It's an intrinsic part of the rational process. You can't deny it. And if you're going to talk about an emotional skew on an argument, what you need to do is say, here's the argument, and here is the skew, or disprove the argument. Because whether I'm agreeing with something emotionally or not is not really something you can get your teeth into. Whether my argument is correct or not is something you can get your teeth into. To the lady over there, if what you're saying is that the only way to get out of this chain is something unlimited, incomprehensible, and rather than an omnibenevolent God, well, we didn't get onto omnibenevolence or any type of benevolence. We didn't get into those topics at all. All we said was that if you've got a finite chain, you have to have a finite set of limited things. You have to have something unlimited. So you want to call that something the incomprehensible? That's fine as a label for me. I don't think there's much rebuttal to do, but I'm going to address the point that we've had some difficulty on. So we had some options, and we said that, well, it can't be an infinite chain, so what are you left with? You're left with, well, the infinite chain, we know that doesn't make any sense. I think pretty much everyone agrees that doesn't make any sense. We agree that the sort of mutual dependency thing doesn't make any sense. We agree that limited things creating themselves don't make any sense. So we're either left with the fourth option, or someone proposed that maybe there's something else. And that person proposed that, well, you know, maybe you're taking the fourth option because of emotion. Maybe we are, maybe we're not. But the thing to look at is the fourth option, an unlimited, incomprehensible entity created the limited universe. Is that an irrational option? If it's irrational, show me how that's irrational. Because if it's not irrational, if it's a rational option, an acceptable option, then we should accept it. And why go to a fifth when the fourth one is perfectly good? Regardless of the implications afterwards, if we're not comfortable with the implications. You would have to say, we know for sure that option 1 doesn't work, we know for sure that option 2 doesn't work, we know for sure that option 3 doesn't work. Either disprove option 4, and you can maintain your I don't know thing, because we'll have to search for option 5. Disprove it, make it sound irrational. Not, oh, I can't quite work it out, and the incomprehensible, it's incomprehensible. We're proposing an incomprehensible, unlimited entity as the only solution. Is that solution intrinsically irrational? If it isn't, you have to.
No, that is not irrational, but to say that this force of nature is a deity is irrational.
Well, did I say deity? You know, so I didn't
That's
mention.
what God defines. You said
Let me give a list
perfect
of
being.
let me give a list of things that I didn't mention, or neither I nor my colleague. So we didn't mention omnibenevolence, or benevolence, or a good God, or evil, yeah, or a book 1,000 years ago, or 1,400 years ago, or more than that. We didn't mention any of these things.
So let's just call it force of nature. We both agree.
Yeah. You don't know, we don't know.
So we're not. So the point is, we deliberately kept the religious aspect out of it, and
yes.
something that our book, the Quran, does mention, yeah, many times. And I don't propose this as a religious argument. What the Quran mentions is, in the approach to this argument, don't use conjecture, use your rational processes. So the Quran reminds us how to argue this point. Now, I don't argue it because the Quran told me to, because I use my own intellectual basis, but it's nice for the Muslims in the audience that if you look in the Quran, the number of ayahs, the verses, that talk about the ridicule and condemn the use of conjecture in the basic intellectual process of looking at the world and looking at reality. So that's why there hasn't been any mention of religion. We're looking at the framework, we're looking at the explanation of the existence of the universe, the discussion on religion and the implications about this incomprehensible, unlimited entity. That's an entire debate and talk in itself.
Okay, well, it would be very unfair if I got last word. Just to separate two different senses, two different things that I don't know. I do know, or at least I'm pretty sure, that the cosmological argument is not rationally convincing for the reasons that I've spoken of before. I'll just try and put it in a nutshell. is that the only reason we've been given to think that there needs to be a cause then is causes in the empirical world. But, and it's a funny kind of way we both agree, that can't be the cause. It has to be something completely and utterly different, completely and utterly unlike anything we've been given to reason to believe it is. And that I just find, so I'm convinced that the cosmological argument is not rationally convincing. I don't know what scientists are going to come up with in the next 10 years, okay, which is, I think, a fairly reasonable position to take. But just to point out one of the myriad problems with saying, well, we've got this incomprehensible, we've got a cause here, but it's unlike any cause that we've ever met before, and by definition isn't like any cause we've ever met before. Here's a problem. This is why I don't want the last word, because this would be a bit unfair. Pretty simple problem. Does God exist in time or not? Okay? Either way, the argument looks dicey. If he exists in time, if he doesn't exist in time, so literally just try and envisage it, you can't, because so God, nothing changes, okay? Doesn't exist in time. Time and change go together. You can't have time without change, you can't have change without time. Right? If he doesn't exist with time, why would he suddenly bring a universe into existence, and when? And why? Okay? Because he's unchanging. He's unchanging, he can't do that kind of thing. So obviously he does exist in time. But if he exists in time, the argument's pointless, because that means we're in an infinite universe, blah, blah, blah. Time proceeded to the beginning of the universe, and we all agreed there were no infinity. That's just one of the many just nonsenses you get when you try and think coherently about something which, by definition, you can't think coherently about.
Do you agree? Then just give me 1 second.
Yeah.
So, because John had to leave, it wouldn't be fair for me to make another rebuttal. Derek's had one go, and this side's had one go, and I think that's probably the fair place to leave it, even though I do still want to continue this discussion. So what I'd like to do with my short bit of time is to thank the Imperial College Student Union Philosophy Society for organising tonight's debate. For being an excellent chair. For the speakers, for Derek, for John, for Omar, and most of all yourselves for making this a wonderful evening, and I hope the conversation can continue as we finish. Thank you.